the advice I give to any minorities, be it racial or gender, that want to get into the media business is basically, you got to have faith and patience. I would say to anybody that is non-white and non-male, trying to get into this business in America, try to get into the business and not try to get into a company. What I see from my vantage point is everybody wants to work for ESPN. Everybody wants to work for Fox. Everybody wants to hit straight on and get to the grail spot. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't work like that. I tell people all the time, look at the background of everybody that works at ESPN and find out, for the most part, especially those that look like you. Look at their background and what they had to do before they came to ESPN. You know, but we're dealing with such instant gratification of these times that people think you go from here to here. And it doesn't work that way. Not saying that it can't, because a lot of times it can work that way, but what happens is that if you go from being a young individual that is either straight out of college or hasn't even gone to school, just getting their first writing assignments, the first broadcast assignments, or you're somebody who started their own blog or started their own podcast and it's kind of blown up and you haven't worked for anybody before, you go from there to all of a sudden you're working for Fox Sports or you're working for ESPN, without going through that grind, those companies now have control over your entire career because you got nothing to fall back on. Now you're a puppet. And they're gonna screen you along and tell you everything you need because you don't know any better. You're in such a rush to get there, you're missing everything that's gonna build your foundation for you. So now you're coming into ESPN, now you're coming into Fox, you're messing with the big boys and you have no foundation. So I always tell them, stop rushing to try to get here. Stop looking at what we do and thinking you're supposed to get this without going through the 20 years we had to go through to get there. I'm not saying you have to do 20 years, but at least try to put 10 in so that you do have a foundation. Because the foundation puts you in a position to say no. And that's what young individuals tend to always forget. That it's not about the opportunity, it's about the power you have to say no to what they offer you. And the one thing we as minorities, both racial and gender, the one thing we have as minorities, we don't have that gives us any power is basically money. We don't have the same amount of money as white individuals in this country. We don't. And when we don't have a foundation, that's the first thing they dangle in front of our face. And because we're so thirsty for it, we jump at it. And when we start jumping at money, we lose all the power that we have. That's why I'm a big believer in building yourself a foundation, because guess what? When you have the power to say no and you know that you don't need them for anything, you can go back on what you've already built. Like, I don't have to work for ESPN. I don't have to work for Fox. I can work here because I've worked here before. I can go here because I've done this at this level. I've done this at this level. I don't need them. Once you have that, then you have the power to say no. And then they can't just dangle money in front of your face and dictate and make you a puppet for the next 20 years. They can't control your career. But because everybody's in such a rush to get to this end game, they miss all that. And when they miss that, they render themselves not necessarily powerless, but not the power that they should have by going through the game a different way and not rushing. I would tell them that all the time. And the other thing I would tell them is the two most important things you must have in this game is faith and patience. That's it. You must have extreme faith and extreme patience. Extreme faith in your ability and what you have the power to do and teach yourself to do and cultivate yourself to do. You must have faith that you have the power to outwork, to outlearn, to out-execute anybody else around you. But you also have to have the patience and not putting timelines on when this is supposed to pop for you. Like, if I don't get this in 5 years, I'm gone. If I don't get this in 10 years, I'm not here, then I'm gone. No. You know what I'm saying? You have to have patience to know that whatever is supposed to happen to me for the work that I'm putting in is going to happen when it's supposed to happen. That everything's going to fall in divine order. Those two things are paramount, especially when you're dealing with other individuals and the negativity that you're going to get from people like, nah, you're not good at this, and nah, you've been doing this too long. It's not going to, damn all that. That's where your faith has to come in. You have to have that faith in yourself, but you got to have patience. Like, I call it the Morgan Freeman theory. You know, and people don't understand Morgan Freeman started acting at 18 years old, doing stage plays in Mississippi. You know, the only real national job Morgan Freeman had until he got his first job acting in a film was he was the letterman on Electric Company, which is a children's television show back in the 70s. Right? And that only, I don't know how long that lasted, but it wasn't long. Maybe 10 years, I guess I'm thinking. But other than that, he stayed doing stage plays in Mississippi. He did not get his first acting role until he was 51 years old. He did Street Smart with Christopher Reeve. He played a pimp. Once again, stereotype, black man, you know, your first role in the movie. You have been trolling the stages in Mississippi, not Broadway, not Chicago, not LA, Mississippi, from 18 to 51. I think a couple of years ago, Morgan Freeman was commanding $18 million a film, and he's in his 80s. That theory is what I'm talking about by having faith and patience. Right now, I don't know anybody that would have the patience to do what he did. He believed in his craft and he believed in himself. It wasn't about like, I gotta get a TV commercial. I gotta get on a TV show. I gotta start going to LA and that's where all jobs are. And I'm gonna start waiting tables. I gotta make this thing happen. I gotta make it pop. I gotta make it pop. I gotta land this. No, man, look, I am going to perfect my craft. I'm gonna stay here in Mississippi, build my family, do my thing, but I am going to perfect my craft, and when something's supposed to happen for me, it will. That's why I call it the Morgan Freeman theory about having faith and patience, because he's a class example of what happens when you do have faith and patience. You never know. You know, God or whatever higher, you don't even have to believe in God. You know, whatever spiritual or higher being that has control over all of our lives, if you put the work in 9 times out of 10, it's gonna work out for you. It's gonna fall in divine order. You just have to have the faith and patience to believe it.